right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. As always, I'm your host, Adam Smith, with Just the Tips Coaching. And we've got a really cool guest for you guys today. Somebody we have tried to get on the show for a long period of time. And part of that is that we have known each other for an even longer period of time. But this is probably one of my favorite guests that we'll have on the show. This is really cool stuff. So please welcome Sandra Shaler. Hi, Sandy.
Good morning. How are you, Adam?
Good. I think we can get right off the bat that you are not American born.
I am not.
The accent is clearly Bolivia.
As you will see, my little tagline, the accent on real estate.
That is adorable.
Yes, I moved here from England in 1999. I think that's probably around the time where I came to the neighborhood I live in where I met you.
Wow, that would probably be about right.
25 years this year.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that it's probably right about that same time frame or near it that I moved into that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was a long time ago. You're not kidding. Okay, so today's theme is going to be things Sandy can say that'll make Adam feel old. That'll be fantastic. So, Sandy, I think it's important for our audience to understand that in addition to having done this for a long time and having been really successful, and obviously I know this because of our former neighbor relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and every time I wrote a deal in our neighborhood, your name was on one side or the other of the contract. Obviously, that farming is a big deal, but this is really a second career for you. You'd had a previous career in a former life.
Well, I was a flight attendant.
Right.
When I moved to the States, I actually worked at the elementary school because, well, I volunteered. And then once I got my green card, that's when I got my real estate license. But obviously, with my circumstances, my husband lost his eyesight in 2010. Then I took multiple jobs to try and get the children through college. Thank goodness that's all done. They're all successful and they're all got great jobs. So
was one of those jobs being back in the friendly skies?
No.
Okay. We are not going back to being a flight attendant.
I work for British Airways.
Right.
My children have definitely not gone to be stewards or stewardesses, as they called them then.
They did. That's true. Which always seemed like a strange term to me anyway. I think one of the things that really baffles me about being a flight attendant when we're dealing with commercial air travel is the way that the commercial air traveler thinks about flight attendants.
Mm-hmm.
I need a drink. I need a pillow. I'm gonna get up and use the restroom, even though the seatbelt light is on, etc. And a lot of people don't understand that 99% of the training is for 1% of the job,
Correct.
Which is to keep people safe.
Yes.
If shit goes sideways, I want my well-trained flight attendants there.
Absolutely.
If you happen to get around to bringing me a drink, great. Thank you so much. But I know that's not your job.
Well, my travel was during the days where everyone could smoke on the plane.
Wow.
And, that's conveniently where they put the crew seats. So you'd have to sit in all the smoke.
In a cloud of smoke in the galley. That's
the last
fantastic.
3 rows. And obviously where they could drink and wouldn't get into trouble. And if they did, it was usually some burly steward or the flight engineer that would come down and zip tie them to the seat.
That's fantastic.
That never happened, thank goodness.
I can't say I've ever seen anyone zip tied to a seat, although now I feel like I'm missing out on an experience. So, when did you start in real estate? Right around 2000?
No, I got my green card in 2002 and I got my license in 2003.
Okay, so we're talking still more than 2 decades.
Yes.
You're one of these very few agents, and we know just statistically that 80% fail in the first 2 years and 85% in the first 5 years, and that maybe 2 or 3% of the agents today have ever seen a buyer's market. Right? We haven't had one since 07, 08, 09.
Right.
So it's very, very slim. So I think it's important for our audience to know that you have been at this a long time, that you have seen all kinds of ups and downs.
Yes.
Because I think it's funny, a lot of people ask me these days about, being a new real estate agent, and a lot of them say it's hard right now, huh? Like, well, no, it's always hard. It's
Yes.
a different
Yes.
kind of hard.
Hmm.
So whenever you're starting your real estate career, it's going to be hard.
The first year was very hard, and I know people joined, in the frenzy of the last 2, 3, 4 years.
Sure.
So, that for them, it's like, woohoo, we just shove in this contract and then we get, we're going to make money. But I went through the horrible time of 2000, 8, 9, 10,
Right.
where, as I said, I took more jobs, and my husband lost his job and his eyesight, just, to kick us in the pants a bit more. So he was not working for a while, and it was very hard because the children then went off to college, and it was just a tough time financially.
No, he wasn't working. He was walking.
He was walking.
Right? He did 1,000 miles.
1,000 miles in 1,000 hours, 1 mile every hour of the day, 24 hours a day for 6 weeks. He
Unreal.
raised about
I
20.
walked the last mile with him. We just had that big celebration.
Yes.
But yeah, very impressive. And I guess I didn't realize all of these things had gone on at the same time that your children had all gone off to school, and we were dealing with what was a ridiculously tumultuous real estate market.
Mhm.
And yeah, boy, you really had a lot on your plate.
When you look back at it, you think, wow, we just did what we had to do. It was not easy, but I had a job at Nordstrom, I had a job at Kaiser, and I was still doing real estate, but real estate was, as I say, very, very quiet. We even tried to sell our house, and I think in 5 months we had 6 showings. So
Wow.
that was in 2011, so it's probably very similar now.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are relatively new agents out there and are concerned about the volume of showings that your listings are getting, take that one to heart, because I
Yes.
do hear a lot of people not quite able to get their head around why we've had this property on the market. We've dropped
Yeah.
the price. Nobody's looking at it. What the hell is going on? And yeah, that's hard to say. And
It's a good time for buyers now because there are some great deals to be had.
true. And we've seen an enormous drop in interest rates.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, those two pieces of the puzzle should, well, I would say they're going to start spurring some activity. I think there's a lot of confusion, ambiguity about what's going to happen with an election cycle in the States. That's always a
Lots going on.
bizarre period. If nothing else, we've proved that the world's a relatively unpredictable place over the last 5 years.
Wherever you live.
Wherever you live, absolutely. So I do think that there is some of that being taken into consideration. But it's funny, you've been doing this long enough, and wow, yeah, almost as long as I have been, which is insane because I'm really old and you're not. I don't know how that happened.
Well, I haven't grown a beard.
Okay.
Well, I don't think I have.
So I ran into a neighbor not too long ago. It's been within the last 12 weeks. And he is motioning across the street about my beard. And I said, I've been wearing a beard forever. And he says, oh, but now it's gray.
Oh.
I was like, yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's exactly the big difference. But it's certainly different. The industry evolves and revolves and has cyclical natures to it, so on and so forth. But where did it start for you? Where was your first home as a brokerage? Where was the business coming from?
Well, when I was in the UK, when the children were small, when we moved here, they were 7, 5, and 3, so very small. It was kind of a journey for all of us. I worked part-time. Lee was working then as well, but I worked part-time in a real estate office in the UK, and I'd always enjoyed. Most women enjoy the looking at houses, showing houses, having a look to see how the other half live. But when I moved out here, I was still very interested in that. In the UK, it's not a license thing. So I was excited to get my license. So I had to wait for my green card. And as soon as I did that, I got my license in October of 2003. So 21 years this year. And then I went to work for Keller Williams, and I was there for about 10 years, and I've been with Equity Colorado for the last 11, 12 years. I moved there because my manager, Ray, who was a fantastic mentor. He went there, so I went with him. He's no longer there, but I was pretty comfortable there, and I've really enjoyed that office. We've got a great, family atmosphere there with all the agents. I think we have about 300 agents at the moment.
Well, I think it speaks volumes that you've only made one change in the entire length of your career. That's a big deal.
It's very expensive to change all your signs and cards.
Yes, and it's stressful, and new systems and new logistics, and on and on.
Stuff. Yeah.
Probably even more difficult than what you guys are now dealing with this month. Are we gonna get into the NAR settlement and talk about?
For me, I just feel like it's, first of all, answer your phone, because now we have to call the other agent before we show a house, just to find out who's paying who. And I feel like it's just going to be more extra paperwork. We'll get through it. We've gone through lots of cycles, as you say, and different things have happened. This is obviously a bit more of a shake-up for everybody. But I feel very grateful that I've been doing it long enough that I just think, well, it's just going to be more paperwork and more discussions with the other agent. So a lot of agents don't answer their phone. I pride myself in answering my phone, but don't call me now because I'm talking to Adam. But it's something I've always...
That means you, Alex.
I pride myself on answering my phone, unless I can categorically say it's some spam, which there is a lot of nowadays.
That's certainly true. And it's funny because we talk about that quite a bit in our office, and certainly in our coaching and so on and so forth. I don't mind. Well, it's a little different now with the robotic aspect, but I always loved talking to telemarketers.
Yeah.
Because these are people that, well, there's an off chance they might have something you want to buy. More importantly, they probably have really fantastic phone skills, which I do think is an important piece of the puzzle. If somebody was really crushing it in telemarketing before we had the robocalling type of thing going on, they probably had something to teach.
Yes.
You could if you're in sales, you could probably learn something from answering that call. And maybe there was always a chance that they were local and wanted to buy or refinance a home.
Yeah. Yes. So, but now you've got somebody that says, the usual spam text I get is, are you still a real estate agent in Colorado? Well, I mean, if I was just going to cold call or send a text to somebody, I would at least say, oh, hello, my name's Sandra Shaler with Equity Colorado. I wouldn't just say, hey, give me a call, or do you want to buy a house, or, these weird spammy texts that come.
That's not going to work for me over text because I don't get your accent. I can't tell that Sandy's from Britain on text.
So. No. Yeah. Well, you might do with some of the words I use, perhaps.
That could be lift, tips.
Yes, garage.
and now you know what I know. Well, and spotted dick. Now you know what I know about the Queen's English. So.
Well, my granddaughter said to me when I was at their house last, I said, well, let's go in the garage and get such and such. She said, Nana, I mean, she was born here, obviously. Nana, we don't have a carriage.
A carriage. That's funny. Okay. And when I go out and shop, I don't use the car park either.
Oh.
I guess I actually misspoke. Do we still dub it as the Queen's English, or is it now the King's English?
I guess it's the King's English now. Right? It's very hard for me because she was here all of my life.
Your whole life, right? Yeah. This is a relatively new development.
Amazing lady.
Oh. Probably one of the greatest leaders in the free world. Well, certainly in my lifetime.
Well, at least she didn't get into arguing with people all the time.
No, she had more important
seems to be
things.
The norm now.
No, she had different ideas of what was important. And
yes.
We won't get into American politics and how that works and why that system is so different. But in any case, so we've obviously talked some about things like robocalling and text campaigns, those kinds of things. What are you doing for lead gen? Where does your business come from? At this point, it's got to be almost all repeat and referral.
It's all repeat, all referral. At this point, I'm actually working a lot with clients' children.
Oh, wow.
Clients' parents. that are selling to move into, assisted living, the whole gambit really. Obviously it's fun now because some of the kids have bought 2 or 3 houses. They've got great jobs, and it's so nice to see them all being successful. And I feel bad for my own children who are now trying to buy in the market we're in now with prices and interest rates that are high. But
it's different.
It's very different. We paid £26,000 for our first home. And that was probably a year's salary at the time. But now you can't buy a house with a year's salary.
No. Well, I guess it depends on your salary, but if your salary is enough to buy a home on 1 year's salary, you're probably not the person buying that home.
No.
Right. So yeah,
no,
it's very different.
Tough for the kids. My son and his wife just bought a very nice place in Aurora, which he works at Anschutz, so they were able to get a reasonable priced town home in that area, and he can ride his bicycle to work, which is great. But
that is,
my son works in Westminster and he's now living here with his girlfriend. It's an hour's drive at least.
I was going to say that's a commute. He's spending a couple hours a day in the car.
Yes, not much fun and a waste of time and energy. Commuting is very tough. But, so I say I've been very successful. Things have carried on regardless of all the hurdles we've had. It's been up and down, and the last I think I said to you, Adam, I had cancer last year, breast cancer. So last year was somewhat quieter while I was trying to recover.
Treatment and recovery, right?
Yeah. But, I'm very fortunate that things went very well, and fingers crossed they continue to go well.
I'm sure that'll be the case. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt. So let me ask you this, because I have an opportunity and we tend to throw this one out there for some of our guests. What is your favorite piece of technology for a real estate agent today?
My phone.
My phone. Well, that's a big one.
That is. I do so much on my phone. When we started, maps is another good technology, because when I started, I would have maps and I'd be in the
map books, sure.
Shopping, MapQuest. I'd show 10 houses and I'd have to map out I'm terrible with directions. So
fair enough. Yep, MapQuest was certainly a big revolution, but what goes on in your smartphone is certainly a big deal. But I gather that you still actually spend a lot of time on the phone.
I do.
Actually really talking to people, A/B conversations.
Yeah. I don't just send out, a text saying, "Hi, how are you?" Unless I know it's a client that only corresponds by text, because some do.
No, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. For all of you listening, Sandy hit the nail on the head here. Let's communicate in the manner in which our clients want.
Mm-hmm.
If they like text, use text. If they want to talk on the phone, if they want to email, if they want to use Facebook Messenger, whatever the case happens to be, then yes, by all means, let's adapt.
Yeah. And if you've known your clients a long time, you get used to the way they communicate with you and what they use. Some still via email. I do send out emails every month, to my clients.
Some kind of a marketing piece?
Just general, they're just little quirky things sometimes, or something about the housing market. Not very long, because I feel like people's attention span with all the stuff they're bombarded with is pretty short nowadays.
It's awful. Yeah, we have the attention span of a gnat.
They see your name. Oh yeah, we'll look at that later, and they never do. I also send out magazines, which the magazines are really, as we talked about, it's more of a repeat. So they still realize that if you haven't seen somebody for 5 years, that they still know you're in real estate.
Sure. Well, I think that's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. We have to be constant and consistent with whatever we do in our marketing, our lead gen, however you guys want to describe it. And I do think that that's an important, I don't want to say top of mind, because that's not necessarily the right term, but to remain present, and obviously to make sure that that subtext, whatever it is you guys are doing, whether it is that magazine or other snail mail activity or email activity or text campaigns, voicemail campaigns, we could go on and on, whatever your content happens to be. I think it's important to make sure that the subtext is always, hey, I'm still in real estate. Don't forget about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is the exact result of having that constancy and consistency. How often do you do the magazine?
They're every about 8 weeks.
Wow, that's frequent. And how
So,
long have you been doing?
they have, like they have a little letter in there from me. They have little tear out recipe cards. And sometimes I get some of my favorite and older clients will call me and say, hey, have you still got that recipe from magazine such and such? Because they can tear them out and put them on the fridge and suddenly they've lost their recipe for spotted dick. Or
That's hilarious. Okay, if you're sending out recipes for spotted dick, then we could come up with all kinds of really unique British
Sticky toffee
cuisine.
pudding is a good English one as well.
Okay.
You can buy that in Whole Foods.
Bangers and mash.
Yeah, well, I'm a pescatarian. I don't eat meat anymore.
Okay.
But they do good vegetarian sausages in Whole Foods.
Okay. All right. And I think we've pretty much covered every highlight of British cuisine that exists at this point.
Well, it's a mosh pit over there of a lot of Indian food is fantastic.
True.
So with everything French and Italian and English, the English obviously, as you say, is things like toad in the hole and spotted dick and fish and chips.
Fish and chips. Okay, that one I can't believe I missed. Yes, absolutely at the top of the list.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people fail to recognize that the movement around Europe is similar to the movement, the entire country, or excuse me, the entire continent of Europe. The movement around Europe is similar to the movement around the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I come across people from Europe that are always stunned at how many Americans don't have passports.
Yeah.
And they do travel. We've got to understand, traveling from England to Germany, there is a very different culture. There is a very different language there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody speaks English because really only the United States thinks we don't have to learn a second language to be, world savvy. We're a little, I don't know. Well, neither here nor there. And it's not too dissimilar from what you would get going from Washington to Texas.
Correct.
Or New York to Florida.
Yeah.
These are similar types of changes in culture, in language, in cuisine, so on and so forth. And it's very difficult for a lot of Americans to grasp that about Europe and a lot of Europeans to grasp that about America. Mm-hmm. But this is an enormous place. And there are many, many states that are bigger than most European countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I could hop on Eurorail and be in 6 different countries in the same day.
Yeah. And my parents lived in Spain, and Spain for the Brits is like going to Florida for the Americans. It's
right.
The climate's good. It's a reasonable, cost of living. The food is good. There's plenty of wine.
That's certainly true.
But they moved there just because the weather in England generally in half of the year is pretty grey and miserable.
Yeah, it's like our Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
We have amazing summers, and those poor people have gray and gloomy and cloudy for 9 or 10 months a year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We that's the one thing that will be very hard for us if we were ever to move back to England is the weather. I mean, really in Colorado, we are so fortunate.
So spoiled.
My sister moved here in 1985 and she lives in Florida, and even she's lived all over, but she's ended up in Florida, and she still complains about how hot and humid Florida is in the middle of the summer.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
If you're used to the high desert.
I don't like really, really hot. I'd rather be too cold than too hot. Not my thing.
A woman after my own heart. I always say I'll take 0 over 100. Yeah. However, I say that when I talk about here in the high desert.
Yes.
Where there's no humidity and tons of sunshine and so on and so forth. I don't think I'd want to see 0 in a humid climate.
No, well, in England, it was 80 something last week. And of course, there's no AC anywhere. So my in-laws who are, getting up in years, he's like, well, it's about 90 in the bedroom. And I said, you haven't got like any AC? No. we just enjoy being hot. And I'm like, oh gosh, that would not work for me anymore. I'm too
No,
spoiled.
enjoy and hot, no, are not going to
No.
ever be in the same sentence dripping from my tongue. I assure you that is not going to happen. So, where are we going with all of this, Sandy? The technology, the NAR settlement. What do you think are going to be some big changes to how you do business in the next few years?
More paperwork.
Yeah.
More paperwork.
Although digital for the most part.
Yes, yeah. But there'll be extra paperwork. Obviously, the contracts have already changed to reflect all the new rules.
Sure.
I think, that there needs to be more communication between buyer's agent, listing agent, because otherwise there's going to be lots of confusion. Now, for those of you who don't understand, it's, basically the buyer, if you have a buyer's agent, you're representing the buyer. The buyer now has to, either the listing agent and the seller pay the buyer's agent, or the buyer pays the buyer's agent. It's either one or the other, or a combination of the two.
Sure.
So that's really where it is. But it's going to be very hard for some buyers because, if you're a first-time buyer, how do you afford to pay your agent if you're not going to be paid by the listing agent or the seller? And I think the buyers, some buyers I've heard, and this hasn't happened to me yet, some buyers have said, well, don't show me any houses where the seller's not offering any commission because we can't afford to pay you. And I guess, for most buyer's agent, if you've shown somebody 40 houses, you would prefer to get paid. And
yes.
Buyers really do need representation.
For sure.
I think that's going to be the hurdle everybody has to get over. I don't know if there's going to be any people trying to sneak things in or do things differently, but obviously I work for myself, but I'm under the umbrella of the company I'm with, and we have lots and lots of classes, as well as the South Metro Denver Realtor Association that I'm a member of. Their class is non-stop of trying to remind you of how to do things and what you can do to help your buyers and your sellers. For me, I feel like I give a huge value to both my buyers and my sellers. And if a seller is going to sell a home with me, I would recommend they pay a commission to the buyer's agent, because I don't want that to negate somebody showing their house. If an agent says my buyers can't, they can't afford to pay me. So there'll be more negotiations, but if you're gonna sell your house, it's a bit like going fishing without bait. You've got two lines in the lake. One's got bait, one doesn't. The fish is going to go the one with bait. So I tell my sellers that really is. I feel like that is the way to bring the buyers in, especially in the market we're in, where it's gone a little bit quieter at the moment. Then you want people to show your home. And your home could be as beautiful as you like, but if there's 10 buyers and 5 of them can't afford to pay, then they just won't look at the house. So as I said, there'll be new rules, yes. Things will be tweaked, things will change over time, but we all have to learn the new rules and abide by those at the moment.
Well, I do think an increase in communication will be key. Mm-hmm. Agents with their buyers, agents with their sellers, buyers agents and listing agents communicating with one another. Mm-hmm. I really don't see it as a monumental change. I think it's always kind of been this way, and it's really just dependent upon the optics. If the seller had been paying the commissions, which is kind of how it was framed if you were representing the buyer.
Yeah.
Then, okay, the seller agreed to list their home at 6%, and the agent was going to split it with the other agent. We were going to have a very cooperative situation there. And in reality, though, it's built into the purchase price. Mm-hmm. So wasn't the buyer really paying it because they were willing to pay that amount for the home? And of course, jokingly, I say, you're both wrong because I'm the one giving them the money. I'm the one paying it. So it really has always just kind of depended upon the optics.
Yeah.
On how you view it, how a buyer views it, how a seller views it. I don't think it really changes all that much. I think we have a little bit more transparency, a little bit more complexity, mm-hmm. which makes the need for that transparency greater, which makes the need for that communication more dramatic.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. But I do want to put this out there because I have caught a lot of chatter about this going on. I'm not in support of what went on with these class action lawsuits. I feel like they were always based on they're tort law, mass class action lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt that they were based on kind of an antitrust belief. And of course, antitrust is criminal, not civil, which is a big part of it. I think the defense for the realtor boards, for the National Association, for the big companies did a very poor job in particularly selecting defense witnesses. I was appalled by some of the defense testimony that these experts were supposed to be giving. The tort attorneys made somewhere between 125 and 150 million dollars, and every consumer that was represented in those class action lawsuits probably got 10, maybe $25. So I don't think that we did a very good job representing it. I'm not a fan of what occurred, but I do feel that these attorneys, these tort attorneys who either already had representation for the plaintiffs in these or have plans to be the representation for future class action lawsuits for these plaintiffs are watching you guys like hawks.
Yes.
For any little misstep, please, please, to everybody involved in the real estate community right now, agents in particular, please be careful. Watch your step. Do everything by the book. Remember, there is not one single transaction that can make your career, but it only takes one to break it.
Right.
So please do everything as by the book as you can. Obviously, there are things that are going to occur that we weren't aware of, that were negligent, but not dirty. And it's going to happen. But yeah, please, please be careful.
And I mean, the commission part of things has always been negotiable. There was never any set rate.
Well, it's not any trust. If I don't want to work with Sandy Shaler because, well, I don't like British accents, which would be absolutely ludicrous because it's so adorable, that I am free to go work with another agent. And if I don't like working with Keller Williams and I want to go work with Remax, then I have the freedom to do that. There was never anything antitrust in my mind.
No.
So I'm not certain why the lawsuits actually developed the way that they did or had the outcome that they did. But yes, please, everyone, be careful going forward. I think that that's uber important. All right. But yeah, so here we are. And I knew we would run over because you and I have
too much to talk about.
Well, we've known each other forever. We haven't had a long conversation in a while. We had some time before we went live where we were able to catch up on Lee and the kids and so on and so forth, and discuss your health concerns that went on last year and so on and so forth there. But yeah, this has been fantastic.
Yes.
Let's do it again.
Thank you very much. And regarding when you said something about the company you work for, nobody ever asked me who I work for, because they work with me, not Keller Williams or Equity Colorado. You
don't work for them.
They just want to work with me.
You work for the buyer or the seller.
I do, yeah.
That one's.
Somebody said, well, I don't like, ABC Realty. And I'm like, well, you're not working with them. You're working with me.
Well, and they wouldn't even know. They don't know who they're working with that way. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Sandra, for doing this. I'm glad we finally were able to do it. Let me give our audience a little bit of heads up of what we've got going on as of late. Obviously, you can catch live video episodes of How I Met Your Mortgage on Mondays at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. You can then catch the podcast on Wednesdays. We put those episodes up on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. And what else are we up to these days? We have the big annual Mile High Mastermind coming up at the end of next month, always the last weekend of September. But for all of these things, if you want to catch more episodes of this, if you want to see the video blog, the weekly little tip, if you want to attend the mastermind, whatever the case may be, go check out justthetipscoaching.com and you can find all of that data there. Sandra, don't go anywhere. I'm going to run our extra. Yes, thank you. I'm relatively new to running all of this by myself, in case those of you out there listening or watching can't tell. But thank you for doing it. I'm glad we were finally able to get you on an episode, and we will do another one soon. And before I forget, we did get some commentary on it, including a really fun comment on our LinkedIn broadcast from Tom Mustin, who says, two of my favorite people. And yes, Tom, we love you too. And it's funny, I was thinking about him this morning because I was showing off my Bronco memorabilia collection.
Mhm.
And I think Tom has interviewed me twice when the Broncos had made the Super Bowl, and I was not in the lottery to get tickets, despite what is now 60 years of season ticket, third generation type of stuff. So yeah, Tom always thought that was an interesting.
Yeah, Tom was amazing following Lee when he did
his walk. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Tom, we love you, and thanks for chiming in. For the rest of you, we will see you next time. We'll have a fresh episode in 2 weeks. We will be taking next Monday off for the holidays, so everyone enjoy that, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Oh, it has been my pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.